Hey guys, Tricks Ridiculous back with another video. Today I'm going to be breaking down all of Hawkeye's skills, everything we saw in the deep dive. I'm going to start with just a review of what we saw. So if you've already seen the deep dive a few times, you know all of the skills, and you just want my opinion on them, jump to the review. That'll be time-stamped in the description. Now, we know from the trailer that Hawkeye is going to have 10 different arrow types. Obviously, not all of these are going to be his selectable ranged option. I have to imagine that that's going to be limited to 3, just like other characters, and 3 of those arrows are his heroic abilities, and the rest are just kind of intrinsic and traversal. So kind of wanted to go over everything we've seen in the trailer, how I think all these skills will work, and very, very early impressions on how I think Clint will excel as a character and what arrows I think will be the best. Before we get into it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also follow on Twitch, Twitter, and Discord as well. All of those links are down in the description. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright boys, so the first thing is his quick draw reflexes. This is just his parry, really nothing too fancy here. Every character has this, but I imagine that some of the arrows we'll see later will actually come as follow-ups to parrying an attack. The next thing we're going to see here is his Deadeye skill. So this will probably be his first ranged arrow type, similar to the razor arrows that Kate has. In fact, I think it even says in the trailer the words razor arrow. It looks like when it's fully charged, it actually locks on and does some pretty high damage and some knockback as well. All right, and then the next thing we're going to see is the grapple arrow. All right, so the grapple arrow is, you know, kind of just going to be his basic traversal. I picture this working pretty similar to Black Widow's zip line. You'll use the jump when the jump button when you're near a ledge to grapple, up to a ledge and to swing from any type of swingable poles and things like that. And then if you use R2, you'll probably zip to the nearest enemy, similar to how Black Widow works. So it's pretty nice. This is a really fun way to jump around from one enemy to another, and it was previously something that only Black Widow can do, so it's nice to see another character have that. We'll just have to see if it's really valuable for Hawkeye to be that close, considering he's a bow character, but I guess time will tell. The next one here is the boomerang arrows. So these look very powerful. I'm not 100% sure how they will be triggered. They do say in the trailer that it is an intrinsic arrow type, so it's probably not one of his main arrow types. It's possible it'll be triggered by holding square or triangle, probably similar to, Kate's smoke bomb or detonation arrows. If these are very easy to consistently use, you can see they really do hit quite a few enemies, and I think they'll be pretty popular. All right, next one is implosion arrows. So kind of same thing here. This looks the most similar to Kate's smoke bomb arrow. So I would have to imagine it's triggered in a similar way, probably just by holding square. Kind of like works like a mini singularity, which we know how good that is. But it does look like it's very short range and only lasts like a quarter of a second and really doesn't have very strong of a pull. So, we'll have to see exactly how that is. Tripwire, so this is going to be his second arrow type, similar to the scatter shot. Looks like it'll be focused on more crowd control, stagger, and knockback. Next one we're going to see here is the rocket arrows. So this one, it looks pretty cool. Looks similar to Iron Man's finisher, but I think this actually is going to trigger off of a parry. I think that's what I got from the trailer. It looks like after you parry an attack, it'll probably be his square or triangle follow-up to actually follow up with that rocket arrow. Looks like it would be pretty cool. Obviously, if it's just a parry follow-up, it's really not anything super valuable to his kit. It's just something you're probably going to do once in a while. Next, we'll be seeing the Pulsar arrow. So this is going to be his third ranged option. Similar to explosive arrows, looks like they'll have to stick to enemies, and then you'll actually get a bigger explosion the longer you charge the shot. All right, so his assault heroic ability, Night Storm arrows. So you'll see here, this looks like kind of a short range, high damage AoE. You'll see in the trailer, where he, shoots in an area and then it just kind of rains arrows for a couple of seconds. But we actually see in some other gameplay that it, has a few augmentations. So we'll see how that works. Next is his recovery arrow. So this is a support heroic, a healing aura, pretty straightforward. Everyone in the aura is going to catch some heals. Very, very nice. And then his ultimate is, of course, the Hunter's Arrow. So this is going to be a one-off ultimate, an arrow that zips around and hits everything in the immediate area. Looks pretty cool as well. Okay, so what are my thoughts? Well, for the basic stuff, his grapple arrow looks like a fun way to get around. His rocket arrow after a parry, like I said, that's kind of whatever. His implosion arrow looks like it can be okay, but it might be a little too short range and low duration to make too much of a difference in combat. My prediction on the implosion arrow is it does not see much play. Boomerang arrows, however, those seem great. Being able to, not have to aim, hit multiple targets, that's really fantastic for crowd control. I think it'll work similar to holding down triangle, but it is currently unknown. If it will be easy to kind of fire these off one after the other, I do expect these to be used quite a bit by players. Now, for his main arrow types, they are very similar to Kate's. He's got the Deadeye, which is very similar. It's kind of his version of a Razor Arrow. Tripwire is his version of a Scatter Shot, and then the Pulsar is similar to an Explosive Arrow. It's really hard to say right now exactly which of these will become the king because we have yet to see the mastery tree that can augment them. Looking back at Kate, I would not have thought Scattershot was going to be Kate's best arrow until I got that +2 arrow upgrade on her tree. That's what really brought it to the top. But just looking at her trailer, I wouldn't have guessed that. So I'll probably rule out, the only one I'll rule out is Pulsar arrows. And, the reason I say that, unless they do an absurd amount of damage to a single target, Explosive Arrow, as Kate has, is already extremely clunky to use. It's very awkward. It's not an arrow that you can really reliably use. And Pulsar seems to be the very same animation. So it's going to be just as clunky to use, but even worse because you're going to have to, stick a target rather than rely on the AoE. So I do not expect Pulsar arrows to be used at all. The only caveat to that is if they are extremely high single target damage, it's possible that they can be used, for some boss melting builds, but I don't expect them to be used overall. They seem way too clunky, way too hard to use. You have to hit an enemy, and it just overall is not what I would like to be using. If I had to guess right now, I would say the Tripwire arrow is going to end up being the best, similar to Kate's Scattershot. It looks like the actual area, kind of the lightning between each arrow, can also hit enemies, so it'll be very nice to not have to aim. You kind of just fire almost like a wire that just hits everything in its path. Really, really nice. Going to be nice to be able to damage multiple enemies at once. Just kind of shoot that through a large crowd and just kind of let it hit everything. Also, if each arrow can crit individually, that will be, like Scattershot again, the best way to trigger a targeted buff, right? Because if they can all crit individually, if you can get a damage buff on ranged crit, you're going to be want to shoot multiple arrows at once, all right? But again, it's all to be determined until we actually see the full kit. All right, now for heroics, again, kind of same thing here. We need to see exactly what specializations you can pick for, for the support, assault, and ultimate. Before passing, judgment. But right off the bat, I really do think all of his heroic abilities are pretty great. The Nightstorm Arrow, which is his assault heroic, looks like a short range, high damage area of effect. I imagine it will be great against bosses, against large enemies like Exos, Dreadbots, Adaptoids, and it'll probably pair nicely with some effects like Kate's Singularity Arrow. If she can group up large enemies, large group of enemies into one, hit them with that, Nightstorm Arrow, that'll be a nice 1-2 punch. The Recovery Arrow, that's the support heroic, that's the heal field. I'm going to need to see some more of that before I make a judgment here. There are already a few healing AoEs in the game. Thor can do it off of his Bifrost. He can leave a healing aura. And the Hulk can do it off of his clap. He can leave that kind of gamma radiation that can heal people. Both of those are pretty underwhelming. The Hulk's a little better than Thor's, but they're both not great, and especially with Challenge 4 coming back, it will need to be a lot of healing to be useful. It can't be this, 5% every second. That's not going to be enough healing. It needs to be like a lot of healing. Think of something like a Well of Radiance from Destiny. That's the kind of healing it will need to be for it to really work. And again, we'll have to see. I don't know. We don't know the duration of it. I'm guessing it'll probably last for 30 seconds. But if it's a really high healing, like a Well of Radiance, it'll probably maybe only last for like 15. But the size of the aura is fantastic. I'm not worried at all that it's too small. It seems absolutely great. And if there are some, whether it be some of his specializations or maybe even exotic pieces that give other abilities, I'm thinking, I can foresee something like damage reduction while you're standing in it, right? A damage boost while you're standing in it, a chance to generate heroic orbs while you're standing in it, while you get kills in it. If you get something like that in addition to it, I think it'll be a great support ability, hands down. And then the Hunter Arrows, of course, that's his ultimate heroic ability. Finally, we get another one-off ultimate, right? So the only two we've had was the Bifrost and the Clap, Hulk's Thunderclap. Everything else kind of is a roaming super, puts them in like a mode where they can, walk around. Hawkeye's one-off super, boom, looks like it'll be fantastic. Just kind of zips around, hits all the enemies. We know from the trailer they actually said you can specialize it to shoot 2 arrows at once, have explosive charges, or be able to actually focus only on targets that you want it to focus on. Now, I imagine this arrow will be absolutely fantastic, both for clearing rooms of enemies and also for dealing single target damage if there's only one enemy around. I have to imagine that the arrow can kind of hit the same enemy multiple times if it's just a boss, right? So I really equate this super to something similar to Hulk's Thunderclap, although it's probably not as blunt. When you think of Thunderclap, it just hits everything in a radius. This thing, a little more surgical, kind of hits all enemies one at a time, but I think the effect will be pretty much the same. I do predict that this is going to be many players' favorite ultimate in the game, myself included. All right, so overall, Hawkeye is looking pretty sweet. I'm really excited to play him. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow on Twitch, Twitter, and Discord as well, and I'll see y'all in the next one.